What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the DT show. I'm Daniel, and today we got a twofer. We're going to be talking about two cases that I think a lot of people have looked at as possible similar eerie connections, not connections, but similarities. There we go. That's the word I'm looking for. And I don't disagree. There's some oddities here and some similarities between these two cases. And the two cases that we're going to be talking about are going to be the disappearance of Summer Wells and the disappearance of Lilly and Jack Sullivan. Summer Wells went missing a little bit over 4 years ago out in eastern Tennessee on a very warm summer day. And Jack and Lilly went missing in the early morning, well, maybe not early morning hours, but in the morning hours of February this past year. So they've been missing for 6 months or so now. And a lot of controversy, a lot of theories and things of that nature that I've already kind of come to see in both cases. These two disappearances are new to me. I'm new to the to both of them. I'm kind of catching up a little bit, so to speak. And so, one, I kind of have an idea. The other one, my mind is definitely not made up at all on anything. But today we're going to break down a couple of new developments in both cases, some new things that I have learned talking with both Daniel and some folks that are close to Malaya. And here recently I had Ryan Finds Truth on the channel talking about Summer Wells, and there's been some new developments there, and I'm going to give you guys what my thoughts are now that I've been able to kind of read through some things, kind of go through some stuff, kind of just scratching the surface, so to speak, and kind of give you guys what my ideas and thoughts are. Please hit the like button. Please hit the subscribe button. Ring that notification bell. You guys know what to do. Without further ado, we're going to start off with Jack and Lilly Sullivan disappearance. And this one, guys, a lot of folks, because I talk with Daniel, and I talk with sometimes with Malaya's camp or some folks. I talk to a lot of people, right? And some folks might only see that I talk with one person and think that I automatically aligned or agree with everything that they say or do, and that's not the case. And as I mentioned before a few times, my stance is what it is until circumstances change, then maybe the stance does. And now I'm not necessarily saying that's happening here, but a couple of things that I have learned over the past few days have been somewhat concerning, and I'm not going to hide from that. And so let's talk about it. So talking to Daniel for a long time now, or for a while now, he said some things that have been concerning. And one of the things that he had said had to do with Malaya. He says that she was abusive towards the kids. She's, now what he describes as abusive, well, he says that, when Jack would walk by, she would trip him or push him down, things like that. Now, could it be just rough playing, horseplay? And we also have to kind of figure, where they are in their relationship right now. Malaya and Daniel are not together. They're going through a custody battle for Meadow. So they're not obviously on the same side of things. And when you have things that are ugly like this, where you have a custody battle, I wouldn't be surprised. I, in fact, more expect that some things be more exaggerated than them being the truth completely. But, he was telling me about those things, and we started talking about, I guess the media is trying to get some things unredacted. Now, Daniel is okay with unredacting portions of what's still been redacted. Some of the things that he doesn't want to be unredacted are his financial stuff, banks, information, things like that, which I get and I understand. I talked to Malaya's camp, asked them what, the deal is, because Daniel told me that Malaya's side doesn't want to unredact anything. And his thoughts were that if Malaya, or that there's stuff, I guess, in the documents that would make Daniel not appear abusive or something like that, that I guess she had said some things to him or to investigators, which we're already aware of some of the things, that Daniel wasn't abusive. Daniel wasn't, um, he had a voice that they would listen to. He was stern, but not abusive, didn't discipline them physically, those type of things. And so he's saying that some of that stuff he wants to come out. And so that way, people can get off of that. Now, I asked him, I was like, what else is there that you don't want coming out? Now, he's been open about this. We've had our interview, and he said his prior drug history is drug use. And, some of that might be what's redacted. Now, I've asked him before, and, he's alluded to in the past that it'd been some time that he had taken drugs and things of that nature. And based on my conversation with him, I don't know how accurate that is, how long it had been, since he had taken drugs. And, the drugs that he had told me he had taken were stimulants, and that he's been very open about this. Again, he said this in our interview that we had, that he had done drugs and that was a thing. Now, I asked Malaya's camp inside, like, hey, what's going on? According to the person that I spoke to, Malaya has told them that Daniel was using drugs that night prior or leading up to the disappearance of the kids. Daniel denies that. He says, no, that's not true. Now, I asked him what he was doing that night, because I've asked him before, he's not ever really given me a clear answer. And I go, what were you doing that night? And he goes, I don't remember. He goes, it was 6 months ago. I don't remember. I don't like that answer. And the reason I don't like that answer is because I'm sure he's been asked that question multiple times by law enforcement. I'm sure, the next day or the day after or the day that the kids get reported missing, those are probably one of the first few and probably the most commonly asked questions. Now, let's just say Malaya's right, and Malaya's side is saying that Daniel was doing drugs that night and things like that. How does that affect, this case? Now, I know a lot of people are going to say, well, maybe perhaps the kids got into some of his stuff and something happened. And I would agree that's a possibility there. But there are some footprints, and multiple footprints. There's two of them, a cluster of them. And from what I understand, it's two different sizes of boot prints that are in the mud. And there's a cluster of boot prints out there off the pipeline. Now, Daniel, what he kind of alluded when it came to his drug use in the past was basically self-medication because he is severely ADHD, and that the drugs that he uses calm him down so he can be functional, because without it, he's running all over the place. And which kind of makes sense as far as that morning goes, because that's kind of what he was described as. I think that's what part of the argument was in the driveway, right? The argument in the driveway between the families were that he was using, I think somebody had accused him saying, look at you, you're running around acting crazy, blah, blah, blah. And you look like you're on something or whatever. I think that was the accusation. Now, not saying that that's not accurate, but for somebody who is ADHD to the max, that stimulants have that effect. That's why they take certain things that would make other people super hyper and things of that nature, but it calms them down. Now, could the kids have gotten into it? Let's think about that. Possible. If something happened with the kids, how do the boot prints align? They would have to have been planted. Now, who plants boot prints on a pipeline in the middle of nowhere? And how do they plant them without leaving their own or evidence of their own being there? Now, I saw somebody in the comment section not too long ago say something about the bus driver's wife had mentioned that she was on an ATV with her kid on the pipeline, and they allowed, they let the kid get off of the ATV so he can go urinate off the pipeline, and he's the one that left the boot prints. Well, there was 2 different sets for one, and 2, that was just somebody lying in the chat. There's absolutely nothing that ever showed that report. Well, anyways, so be careful what you believe and read in the chat. A lot of people will go in there and just put whatever. Well, anyways, now there are cameras that would have captured Daniel leaving the area, right? If, let's just say, an accident occurred and he panics, he takes off. Well, there's not cameras that show his house, but there are cameras that show one way. I think it's like 300-400 yards one way. There's some cameras, and then there's some other cameras the other direction that would have captured him leaving. Just like I say, it would have captured somebody from like Malaya's family, because that's what one of the big theories out there is, that Malaya's family came and picked up the kids. And I'm like, well, if Malaya's family got there, they would have been seen on camera getting there. Now, I know somebody might say, well, Daniel, there's a lot of, he knows the woods, may have ran back there, hit him somewhere like that. The only problem with that is those woods have been searched. Now, I know that I'm saying, that I think they're still out in the woods. I personally think that that's most likely where they're at, is in the woods. I think they wandered off. I still think that based on the footprints and things of that nature. Now, and RCMP. Now, RCMP changed their story tomorrow. They come out and they say, hey, you know what? This isn't the case. Well, the circumstances of the changes have changed, so the stance probably would at that point too. But, in this scenario here, if he went out there to go and hide the body somewhere in the woods or whatnot, then you have the search, you have the cadaver dogs, you also have the search into him, the search into his the lie detector test, not just his but Malaya's. Now, the other thing that we'd also have to factor in is Malaya. Malaya says she saw and heard Jack and Lilly, or she saw Lilly in the morning. She heard Jack and Lilly out that morning. Now, if the kids got into something with Daniel, Malaya would have to be covering up for him. And then you have Janie. Now, Janie, she heard the kids that morning as well. So I've said it before, that if one of them did something, then they all have to be covering up for each other. Now, the biggest problem with that is that Daniel and Malaya have separated. And so that's one of the things you want out of it. As an investigator, you want them to separate, right? So they've separated, they've stopped talking to each other, and they've turned on each other. They are no longer, talking to each other to keep an alibi, so to speak. And the reason I know this is because, well, there's Meadow. Meadow is in CPS custody. And from what I understand, because I asked Daniel, I was like, why is Meadow in CPS custody? Because I've heard a bunch of different things as to why Meadow's in CPS custody. And he told me flat out, because of the allegations made against him by Malaya of drug abuse and stuff like that. And I'm assuming his allegations on her for the abuse on the kids, because that's what he said. I'm assuming the allegations are from him. I didn't really clear that up. I asked Malaya's side, like, why is it? And I haven't gotten an answer back yet as to why Meadow is in CPS custody. But those are the reasons why. Daniel said that Meadow's in CPS custody right now. And so they've turned on each other, is what it sounds like. They are not speaking for each other. They're not backing each other up for some sort of alibi. That is not what is happening. They literally turned on each other. And yet you have the perfect storm, right? You have, if Daniel's looked at a suspect, you have him being super cooperative by talking to you and being interrogated multiple times. You have him taking a lie detector test, him giving up his phone, his finance records. You have him and your other suspect separate. You have them turn on each other and maybe not flip to the sense of, all right, I'm going to take a deal and say that Daniel did this or whatever, which they, that could have been an avenue to go. But that's not happening. RCMP hasn't come up with anything to prove some sort of criminal offense. So I follow the evidence. That's what the evidence is. That's what we're being told here. And like I said, it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good to me. It didn't sound good when I was talking to him. But at the end of the day, it's not like RCMP doesn't know this. Now, how do I know that RCMP knows about all this? Is because Taylor's also told me this. Taylor, who is the crazy girlfriend that went out and started talking all this stuff and sending all these screenshots and everything else. She had actually contacted me and said that RCMP Major Crimes had finally gotten contact back with her. So she had been trying to contact them. And this is according to her. I've not seen anything that says that this is real. Right. So, she also created pictures with fake bruises and stuff. So you got to take the information with a grain of salt to a certain extent. But what she had told me was that the RCMP called and were asking about Daniel and stuff. And, one of the things that she told me at the end was that, she said Daniel was using, and that not while they were together, but before the kids went missing, and that Daniel apparently was open with law enforcement about his use, drug use, and was open about, everything when it came to it, like super cooperative. And that's basically what she had told me. And, when she told me that was like maybe a week ago or so, I was kind of like, all right, I'll take it with a grain of salt because, there's some stuff that's come out that's from her side of things that haven't been 100% true. She sent me a video of her faking bruises, for whatever reason. Her whole reason for a relationship with Daniel, it sounds like, was one that is more about a fishing expedition than anything romantic with him. You know what I'm saying? I think she wanted to find out some information, kind of be like the girlfriend in the Scott Peterson case that got some info, turned it over to law enforcement, and helped get Scott convicted. And so, let's see. Now, again, you have RCMP. Sounds like they know about all this stuff, and yet they've not made any arrests, not done anything. And you also have these folks that have, because like two things can be also right, man. This guy could have been involved in drugs and his kids wandered off, right? That's a possibility. It's a possibility some other stuff happened. I don't know, man. This case has got, like, it took me from being about 75% like, all right, the kids wandered off. But this information kind of makes me drop me down a little bit, I can't help but think or be like, this doesn't sound good. You know what I'm saying? And the only thing, and this is kind of like when I've told folks, because people have come out and said, hey, why do you believe Daniel? And I've said, I don't believe Daniel. It's not Daniel that I believe. It's the RCMP. It's their investigation. It's what they have done and what they have said. And, I still got to stick to that, because at the end of the day, RCMP knows more than I do. Obviously, I would assume so. RCMP is aware of all this information and has investigated it. And so, but where I'm going to be at from this point on, in my opinion, well, this is where I've been at, but more so now is just kind of be neutral, right? This is the evidence for, this is the evidence against. And that's kind of how I'm just going to stay on this one until more information comes, because it's a situation where it's, you know, I don't like the fact that it's not about Jack and Lily anymore either, you know. But take it for what it is. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Let me know what you guys think about the information. I know a lot of people are going to look at Daniel and say, oh, he was doing drugs, but this isn't something new, right? This is something that he's been open with. He's talked about it. He's talked about his drug use. Now, I think he made a statement once where he said that Malaya said, I think it was in my interview, and I caught on to it too. I just kind of held on to it, but he said, Malaya said that I had stopped using drugs around the time that Meadow was born, right? And I was like, I don't care what Malaya said. I want to know when you said you stopped using drugs. I questioned him a few times. When was the last time? When was the last time? And he wouldn't answer me on the interview. But just because he didn't answer me doesn't mean he didn't answer RCMP, right? I mean, he obviously could have. And it seems like for RCMP to come out and say what they've said, also speaks volumes, because at the end of the day, let's take out all that and let's look at what RCMP has said. RCMP has put out information that that states that they don't believe there's a criminal offense, that everything that they have done was to eliminate them as a suspect and to determine if a criminal offense has occurred. This is in the RCMP documents that we read and went over. And so to me, if they truly suspected, like for instance, Daniel or Malaya, I doubt they're releasing that information. I don't care what the media is saying. I just don't think that they're going to release that information. So I've never seen that much information be released about somebody that law enforcement was anticipating on arresting. You know what I mean? It doesn't happen that way. Maybe after the arrest, but before, and to be in his favor, right? I know some people say, oh, he took a lie detector test, he could have passed it. Yeah, but he's not the only one that did. Malaya did too. Now, when it comes to Janie, I think Janie's 100% innocent in this. 100%. Even if, like, for instance, let's just say that there was something that happened, and everybody's going to look at her and say, oh, well, she said she heard the kids, she's covering up for her son. She was asleep. What she could have heard or what she may have heard, I don't know. You know what I mean? It could have been a number of things. And it may not have been anything. I mean, if we go back into the Brian Koberger case, Bethany thought she heard fireworks, thought she saw fireworks. You know what I'm saying? And so it's not like those type of things can't be wrong. She was asleep. And, I don't know. And then you have something like this happens. Let me pull this up. RCMP charges a man with sexual offenses against a child. And this says here, yesterday at approximately 3:20, RCMP officers responded to a report of an abduction on Gairloch Road. Officers learning that two children were riding their bicycles when a man standing at the end of the driveway flagged them down. The man, whom the children did not know, grabbed them by the arm, entered the nearby residence with the children, exposed himself, and uttered threats. Children ran from the home to get help. Children were not physically harmed, and they arrested a 34-year-old man from Emerald Rock. Now, this was apparently not very far from where Jack and Lily went missing from. Now, does this mean anything? No, but you just got to keep your mind open to the other possibilities of what's going on. Right? Could something like this have happened? Maybe. But yeah, food for thought, right? I'm gonna take some of your questions before we move on to our second part of the show. Let's see. If you got any questions for me, put a couple of stars And that way we can go from we'll talk about this one, then we'll transition into Summer Wells as well. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Let me know what you guys think. The RCMP never find missing kids. They have a long list. That's not good. People saying he's lying, but it's adding to it that he didn't remember, because I don't think it's actual lying. It's just adding to stuff that he has said. Yeah, I don't think he's lying in the past. I think he's been very open about his drug use. He said it I asked him about drugs. He's like, I'm open about it. I've talked about it. He's talked to RCMP about it. At the end of the day, also, I did ask about the whole abusive stuff at Malaya's camp. They said that's not true. That's not true. Nobody's ever said that Daniel's he's exaggerating that, which don't know. I wasn't there, but that's just kind of what both sides are. And again, they're not on the same page. These aren't people who are sticking up for each other, saying, oh yeah, I'm going to be your alibi or anything like that. Do I know when the redacted docs are due to be released? I don't know. From what I understand, Daniel says that he's okay with many. He's already gone through it and said that the only thing he didn't want redacted or stayed redacted was like his financial stuff and past like history with drugs, because he's already been open about that and stuff. And he's already mentioned it. He says that with Malaya, she doesn't want things out there. I asked Malaya's camp. They said that they don't want things out there that has to do with her relationship and Daniel's relationship. That those two, what business is it of anybody is about their relationship, and how does it help find Jack and Lily? To a certain extent, I understand 100%. If the kids wandered off and them two broke up, yeah. I don't know what's in there that she doesn't want out, but she doesn't want that relationship stuff out. And from what I understand too, is that the RCMP themselves don't really want it out. Now, why is it that the RCMP wouldn't want it out? Now, is it because putting things out there that they've already invested in, although look suspicious, they have deemed irrelevant, such as Mr. Wong and his, story about a car driving around late at night? Is that only going to add fuel to the speculation and fuel to the conspiracy theories? Are these the reasons why they don't want it? Probably. If I had to take a guess, I would say that's more than likely what it is. Or it could be because, which I doubt, because they wouldn't have said the things. Now, I get putting out the information, right? Like, this is what we've done. We've taken all this stuff, but to also go to the extent of saying that they've, don't believe a criminal offense has occurred. They've done this with the mindset of eliminating him as a suspect, all these things, right? They're going into it through that lens. It's one thing to say what they've done and another thing to add that on there, right? Another thing, news comes out about the neighbor, and RCMP is quick to come out to say that and to dispute it and say it's not true. The neighbor says, hey, there's a car driving around, whatnot. Now, it seems like the possibility of, or the plausibility here that RCMP doesn't want to release things is because of that. There's a lot of probably tips and things that aren't worth anything that are going to come through and stuff. People's ideas. Somebody had a dream about something happening and they put that in a tip. It's crazy stuff. But when are they supposed to come out? I don't know. They're still kind of going, they're still going through back and forth with with the RCMP and the media. The media apparently is making the biggest push about this. They want more information. They're the ones, mainstream media, I guess, out there in Canada, the ones that are really pushing for all this disclosure and getting it. So that's from what I understand. Let's see. Not true. RCMP are great. They could be. I'm not saying they're not. Let's see. Put a couple of stars so I know you guys are putting them out there. RCMP never told her story. Stay quiet. RCMP said, if you talk to the media, be careful what you say. You know, the RCMP don't like Daniel talking to the media, or they didn't. I don't know if they still do or not. But from what I've heard from Daniel, they don't. And it sounds like when I was talking with Ryan Finds Truth, Ryan, that something similar was said to like Don. And the reason why was because it makes things, it muddies the water, gets a lot of tips coming in and people saying this or that and all these theories that they have to investigate and put resources to. And it ends up, being something that they know is nothing. And so there's that too. I believe you can't. What's Kent saying? Kent. What's going on, Kent? What do you got going? I think a lot of people may be shocked when and if the truth comes out. I mean, I personally think the kids wandered off and got further than the perimeter. I think that those footprints, how do they fit into the case? That's my one undeniable fact that I'm like, all right, well, you have RCMP and you have the footprints. If RCMP didn't come out and the footprints didn't belong or wasn't a thing, if like that was kept secret and we didn't know about it, I'd probably be on the other side of this fence and saying, oh man, Daniel and Malayan did something. Those are the two things that really keep me pulled back, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? Miss says, I believe you. It's political. Sadly, we may not find out. I don't know. I don't know. Could the footprints have been another day, Daniel? Let's see. Let's think about that. So I heard, and I got to go back to the weather stuff, that it had been raining off and on that week throughout that time. And that even that night, there was, so on the dispatch, there was some concern because of the rain that it might wash away the prints. So that kind of tells me that those prints probably were there relatively recent. Then you also have the fact that they're in the middle of nowhere off the pipeline. And we have to factor in the bigger set of footprints were the size 29 or size 11 that belonged to Lilly, who was 6 years old, and that there was a set of smaller boot prints as well. So we would have to believe that two other kids were unattended on this pipeline in the middle of nowhere without anybody else around, because there's no evidence of like a parent or anything else, that just so happened to be the same size as Lilly and have just so happened to have the same boots that were purchased from Walmart, for Lilly a couple of weeks earlier. I just, those things, is it plausible that somebody else, was out there? Maybe. I mean, I don't know when the recent ATV, run was or anything like that. I don't think it had been that recent. I don't think one had happened yet, but I could be wrong. I know I was talking to somebody about that, and I think that they kind of ruled out that scenario. But or maybe there was one, but there was like a lot of rain or something between then. But yeah, I don't think that they were very old, based on the fear that they were going to get washed out. So, but could they have been? Maybe. Let's see. It'd be easy to miss them in the searches. Items not found. Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, searches are difficult. They're difficult. You know, the searches are difficult, and they're not perfect, and most of the time they don't they don't result in anything. So the new info is that Daniel was still using. I mean, that's part of it. Part of the information was that he claims. So we had the fact that I mean, I don't know when. He said it wasn't around the time that the kids went missing. He wasn't, when I asked him when it was, he said it wasn't around then. That law enforcement knows when, and they've been able to. I think that's the way he said it. It was a phone call that wasn't recorded, guys, and so it was. I was actually out and about when I was talking to him. So some of the information I'm only going to try to stick to with what I for sure remember, and I don't want to misspeak and say something, and then all of a sudden everybody's jumping up and down with some sort of conspiracy that may not be 100% accurate. You get what I'm saying? And so he said that it wasn't around that time. I then asked him what he was doing that night. He said he couldn't remember. I honestly don't buy that. That's just my personal opinion. I would have assumed that he would have been asked that a lot of times, or a lot since the disappearance. But he don't remember what he was doing that night. He says that he was just doing oddities, fixing the house here and there, doing some things. And I was like, oh, well, all right. And, he kind of, and then he told me about that Lilly and Jack, not Lilly and Jack, Meadow was in CPS custody because some of the allegations that he has made against Malaya and that Malaya has made against him. And so for those that think that they're on the same side, or that they're covering for each other, or utilizing some sort of same story, that's not the case. And the reason we know that is because, Meadow's not with one of them. If they were trying to, if they were in cohorts with each other, it's a weird tactic to blame each other then for other things, not necessarily the disappearance. They haven't blamed each other on the disappearance, saying that Daniel's responsible for the kids missing. Malaya hasn't said anything like that. It's more so that, they're saying that they're bad parents because there's a custody issue going on. And so to me, you have to take that information with a grain of salt, because custody battles are ugly. They're ugly. And so what Daniel's saying is probably a little bit of a stretched truth, and what Malaya has said back about Daniel's probably the same. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle there, but neither one of them has said, hey, they're responsible for the disappearance. It's more so saying, they're a bad parent, and I want full custody of Meadow. It's kind of what it seems like to me. And then, yeah, that's about it. I probably said a little bit more, but, the redacted stuff is supposed to come out hopefully soon, but they're really trying to, it's not just Malaya. Malaya's, because Daniel says that he's put out there what he wants to be unredacted, and Malaya wants more things to remain redacted. And when I asked Malaya's side, they just want things out there that are pertinent to the case. It's kind of the message that I got, and that some of the things that are redacted have to do with their relationship, and that it's nobody's business, I guess, is kind of what I got, the sense. And that, yeah, that's basically it, and that RCMP also doesn't want majority of it to be redacted. And I've said this before, when we got the documents and it was all redacted, what I said was that was redacted was personal information and stuff that was unfounded. And sure enough, there's a first part of things that gets unredacted, and we start finding out things about Brad Wong, and Justin Smith. And media goes and talk to them, and they pull out this story, and law enforcement has to dispute it. Initially, basically, what I said was unfounded information that had no evidence of it. And I think that's kind of what's left here as well, you know. And you have a custody battle that's turned ugly. But if you're the investigator and you're looking at Daniel and Malaya as suspects, and this is what you want. You want to separate them. You want them to turn on each other and start blaming each other. And then you also want them to cooperate. And to the extent of their cooperation, to the point where they've turned over phones, to the point where they've taken lie detector tests, given up their banking information, their GPS locations, etc. It's hard to say that the RCMP just couldn't figure it out, right? Couldn't figure something out. It's difficult to say that. It's difficult to think that somebody could cooperate to this extent, commit a crime, and still at that point outsmart law enforcement. And, one of the things that Daniel said, which made a lot of sense, was it's not just, RCMP, it's New Brunswick's criminal division or major crimes. It's the local major crimes from all these different provinces in Canada. And he's like, I'm not smarter than all these different major crime units, these detectives that are probably the best in their country. It's like, how can I collectively outsmart them all? And I'll be honest, I don't think he could. He doesn't come off as, like with Brian Koberger, there's a concern there, right? Because he was a PhD student, he studied criminology. There's a lot of things there. Daniel, he took some courses on an app. I just, I don't see it. I don't see it. But hit the like button. Tell me what you guys think. Hit the like button. If you think he did something, subscribe. If you think he didn't, and vice versa. Let's see. I'll answer a couple more questions and then we'll go forward from there. What happened to the witness that said he had been seen two kids holding hands walking towards a gold car? Apparently that person has been, RCMP has been unable to find that person. They've been unable to find them or verify any of the information. But it is interesting. Yeah, let's not interrogate anybody in the chat. Let's keep it pro. Keep it 100. High level. All right. Hold on. Let's see. Okay, perfect. That's what I wanted to know. That's on a different case I'm about to start talking about now. So you guys let me know what you guys think. Put in the comment section. If you're talking to Malaya's side, why don't you ask them how come she's not begging or looking for her kids, in my opinion? I can ask, I just think that everybody's response is different, but I'll ask her that. I have no problems asking, hey, why did you leave? You know what? I probably should have asked that by now. Lynn, thank you. I am going to ask those questions. Why did you leave? Why didn't you stay? Custody battles, why not work amicably for the kids' sake? You would want that in a perfect world. That's what you want. But I can tell you this, as a former law enforcement officer, custody battle stuff it's ugly. It's ugly. It's ugly. We had to deal with it all the time. Now deal with it all the time. Or because she was abusive. Not all men are abusers. Some women are worse than men. I mean, I have no evidence of that, to be honest with you. I can't say one way or the other. Just what Daniel said. I asked Malaya's side, and Malaya's friend told me that she's never seen anything like that. She's never heard anything like that. But what Daniel described, like, if he's walking, she'll, kick his foot so he'll fall down, or push him or something of that nature. Kick him, I think is what she said. He said, it sounds exaggerated, to an extent. But I don't know. I wasn't there. I don't know. At the end of the day, CPS hasn't given either one of them medal at this point. But let's stay respectful, guys. If the prints were under trees making an umbrella, it can last much longer than out in the open. I don't think they were under the trees. I don't think they were under the trees. I think they were in the open. See, I believe the boot prints have nothing to do with Jack and Lilly. I mean, it'd be crazy that two other kids be out there about the same size, wearing the exact same boots that Lilly were purchased for her, and they're out in the middle of nowhere with no adults, evidence of adults around them, in the middle of nowhere in the pipeline. I just find it odd that we would find that. Now, if this was like on the side of the road, I mean, they could have been, kids walking to the bus stop. It could have been a lot of things, right? If it was on the side of the road and the gravel and things like that, but it's not. It's in the middle of nowhere. It is crazy. It is crazy. Thank you. What high levels? I'm not sure what you're talking about there, Steelers fan. Thank you, Dan. Much grateful covering this case from Texas to Nova Scotia. Okay. Thank you, I appreciate that. And again, to me, it's about the information, the evidence, and not jumping to a conclusion. I know a lot of people might hear a certain thing and say, "Oh, boom, this is it. He did it." Well, let's hold on. RCMP is aware of all this information. They've done everything and investigated it. They didn't find any connection. Again, I've used this statement. Hey, what's going on there? Deception detectives in the house. How's it going? Thanks for the 1999. Please reach out to me. I'd like to have you on the show. And I got some other information that maybe we can talk about. But good to see you. Thank you for being here. And then we have Karen Poole coming in with the $2 super chat. So, to me, like, I guess, again, RCMP's investigated a lot of this. Now, like I've also said, if somebody wanted to argue like neglect or something, I can't argue against that. They were responsible for those kids. So, but RCMP's investigated a lot of this, and we'll see what happens. I know that there's a lot of, I guess, rumors going one way or another. We'll see if anything happens and see if anything develops. Please let me know what you guys think. Hit the like button, comment, subscribe. Yes, drunkturkeyshow@gmail.com. Please. Appreciate that. I'm the same with you, Daniel. The boot prints have nothing to do with it. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think the boot prints kind of do. But at the day before the kids found Daniel's lollies and decided to walk there, kids get muddy. I don't know. The terrain is kind of crazy, guys. Like, if you go and look at the street from Google Earth and even the video where the vehicle is parked there, where the RCMP is doing their canine stuff, it is that street where the blanket was found. It's uphill some. And so is the pipeline. In fact, that's one of the reasons why Daniel was super skeptical about the boot prints being out there, being, Jack and Lilly's, is because of the terrain that it would have taken for them to have gotten there. And so you have to also ask yourself, well, if it was, unlikely for them, I mean, wouldn't it have been unlikely for anybody else's kids? Then you got to ask yourself, well, are there any other kids that are missing from that specific area? Because if there are two other kids, same boot prints and stuff, maybe they belong to those missing kids. But I don't know. Yeah, like I said, the boot print stuff is just kind of where I'm at on it. I'm like, I don't know, those boot prints. But let's see. Deceptive detective says, and the only literally two pieces of evidence the kids were in the woods were found by family. Well, the boot prints were found by the ground and search rescue team. And from what I understand, so it's in the RCMP documents. They were found going Friday into Saturday morning by search and rescue. And then there was another. So I saw that in the RCMP documents. Daniel told me that the ground and search rescue, or the command post or whatever, people that were keeping him in the loop that night, had told him that it was from an untrained dog handler. And now here recently, there's been some news articles of a new dog and dog handler in the unit that has just recently got trained, and it talks about how that dog was utilized in several recent searches. And then Malaya had sent over a picture of something from Maritime News or something like that that said that a dog handler had located the boot prints. Now, Daniel told me that the boot prints from the dog handler were found. Basically, it took them some time, and it wasn't like a straight line, or wasn't like a connected thing. I think even the documents say there wasn't anything there that connected like the boot prints to the blanket, but they had started at that point to try to find something, was at the blanket with the dog handler. And that search started around 4, which that was found by Malaya's family. But the dog handlers who found with the dog found the boot prints, and that was in the middle of the night. So that one, no, not necessarily, but that was a rumor that was out there. But the pink blanket 100% was found by, I believe it was Malaya's cousin or something like that. Blueprints. I have it here. I have the documents. Let me see if I can pull them up. The RCMP documents that talk about it. Let me pull it up. Let me see if I can find it really quick. I think I did already. Okay. See right here. Boot prints were found on the pipeline by GSAR Friday night into Saturday morning. There were clumps of them, and they were 2 different sizes. She said that they were small in size and corresponded to what the children would wear. They focused the search in that area because of the footprints. So it was found Friday night into Saturday morning, 2 clumps, 2 different sizes, and corresponded with what the children would wear. One of them had the 29 on the bottom, which resulted in a size 11, which was the same boot print that Lilly had in boot. Apparently Lilly and that was bought for Lilly, and law enforcement was able to find that through the financial records that they pulled from her. And so, yeah, the boot prints were not found by the family. I don't know where that came from, but it was ground search and rescue Friday night and a Saturday morning. And in fact, in the transcript from dispatch, I think it's at 1:30. Let me see. I think it's here. All right. Some blueprints. No. Okay, so there's a footprints. All right. I was at Monday the 30th, so not that one. I'd have to refind it, but I have it somewhere here where they found it like at 1:30 in the morning. The boot prints, but I don't believe they were found by family. But But thanks, man. We need to do something together. It'd be great to have you on. I think the hat and the sunglass look is pretty awesome. If you haven't noticed, it'd be good to talk to you, my man. But let's kind of dig deep into the next case real quick. We're going to talk about Summer Wells and her disappearance. So let's bring this up. Now, I know I spoke with Ryan. Ryan finds truth here recently. He's been covering the case a lot longer than I have, and he's got a wealth of information. Make sure you guys go like, follow, and subscribe. He's kind of opened my eyes to the case, and so I wanted to kind of talk to you guys about some of the things that I have found. So this is from the Greenville Sun, saying that the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation agents and detectives were at the location of the 3500 block of Van Hill Road in Greenville on November 13th to follow up on a lead in the case of Summer Wells. It went missing over 4 years ago in Hawkins County. Says TBI agents working alongside Hawkins County Sheriff's Office and the FBI continue to investigate the circumstances leading to the disappearance. Now, from what I understand, is TBI, local sheriffs, and FBI were out there, and they hauled off some dirt and things of that nature. So a couple of things about that. FBI being involved. Why are they involved? Probably has to do with their... I mentioned it when I was on with Ryan Finds Truth that maybe it's the IGG, but they have other means of investigative tools outside of the IGG, things that maybe perhaps have to do with DNA of bodies or decomposition in the soil, those type of things. So could they be looking for evidence of remains in the soil or any of those things? And I think that the FBI is probably the lab that you want to be able to test those things. So what kind of resources are being spent on this? So does this mean that this is a small tip? Probably not. I would say that this is a big tip. I don't think this is a small tip because of that nature. The expenses they've already paid just to have, equipment out there and personnel and flying in people and things of that nature to go and conduct the search, plus the labs and stuff like that. So this to me tells me this is not just a random tip that came in and they're like, hey, let's just go knock and talk and see what's going on. I think there's more to this in this search. Now, a lot of people are looking in a lot of different directions in this case as to who and what it could be. And we're going to break down some of those things. And so could it have been a knock and talk or a search warrant? I would say a search warrant. You don't want to hire and pay and bring in the bulldozer and bring in everything, or the dump truck, bring in the dump, the shovels, whatever it is that you're going to dig up, the backhoe to dig up the dirt and all these other things. And to get there, and then the owner of the property say, you know what, never mind. Or you start and then they get nervous and say, you know what, stop. Right. Because then at that point, you better have enough evidence to stay there to go get a warrant and then come back. You don't want to be stopped in the middle because, a citizen's rights, when it comes to search and seizure, if it is volunteered that a search can happen, it can be stopped at any point. And you don't want to come across something like that. So I would assume, given everything that they have going on, it'd be in their best interest to have a search warrant. Because if it was just like, hey, do you mind if we search and look around? I think that might, if they just walk the perimeter and stuff like that, that might fly, but to dig up the ground and things of that nature, I don't know, and if you have a search warrant, you have to have some sort of reasonable suspicion and evidence for the search. Right. You can't just go to the judge and say, hey, judge, gee willikers, we want to go dig up this property just for no reason. Nah, you have to have reason. You have to have probable cause for the search. That would give somebody the, reasonable suspicion that you may find evidence there. And so with that being said, I strongly suspect that that this is bigger than what some folks are saying. Some folks are looking at this and saying, no, there's nothing there. I don't know. Let's look at who's at the property that they were at. Let's bring that up real quick. And I have some ideas on this case. Okay, here it is. So here's let me take that one. They were searching at an address of 3537 Van Hill Road. And this is where Summer lives. Now, right off the bat, just kind of looking at her address, looking at her house and things, I strongly suspect if she didn't wander off, which there's even less from what I understand. I guess maybe there's some footprints out in the, around, but she was accustomed to walking around that area. Right. So you probably would find, it's like saying, hey, they found footprints of Lilly and Jack in Daniel's backyard. You're probably going to find evidence of them in the backyard. Right now, down the pipeline, some far away, different story. Now, that pipeline is only, I think, like 2.6 kilometers, so a little bit over a mile or something like that. It's not too far down the way. But to me, whatever happened to her, if it's not her walking off, which I put that in a small category of percentage of possibility. It's probably my lowest percent right now that she wandered off. Still hold it there, still a possibility. But if something happened to her, whether it's an accident, whether it's something nefarious, it happened if it happened at the hands of somebody else, that person is familiar with this property. Plain and simple. Whether that's Dawn, whether that's Candace, or an outside person that visited the house, they are familiar. I don't believe that somebody randomly just pulled up into this location and just found Summer, right? Now, what does this area here, 3537 Van Hill Road, how does this connect with with Summer? Now, apparently there was a guy that lived here in this area, up here somewhere, named Fred Hill Jr. Now, Fred Hill, he has family that owns this property on 3537 Van Hill Road. So let's get down there and see what this property looks like. The crazy thing is it's been blurred out. All right. Blurred out. Don't know why, but wasn't always blurred out. And here's what it looked like before. Interesting thing is there's a red small truck out there. Now, is that a Ford Ranger? Is that a Toyota Tundra or a Tacoma? Don't know. I couldn't tell you. But witness testimony and eyewitness testimony when it comes to vehicles and things of that nature, especially for somebody who's not looking for something in that moment to remember, can be kind of tricky. We go back to the Richard Allen case and the Delphi murders. His vehicle that was parked backwards at the old Child Protective Service place, wherever it is that he parked, it was parked backwards. And a lot of people noticed it because it was parked backwards and had different makes and models as far as what they thought it was. Everything from a old school car, like a 1960s something, to a PT Cruiser, to an SUV, to a small car. Everything that you can think of was described. Outside of the color, I think was the only thing that was kind of consistent. Now, a small Toyota truck, could that be could you confuse a Toyota Tacoma with a Ford Ranger or something like that? I would say, yeah, especially if you're not trying to remember and the only thing you saw was just a small red truck. Good possibility that could be it. At his property out here, there's a red truck there. You know what I'm saying? And the crazy thing is, like, this wasn't blurred before, but it is now. And this is what we have here. And so now, Candace and Dawn did make a statement about this search here. It says here, Dawn, Candace do not want to be interviewed. We are waiting for a statement from TBI. Otherwise, it's just more drama and stirred pain. So there's nothing to say. Thank you to law enforcement. Continue to work to solve Summer's case, November 19, 2025. So this is a statement from Dawn and Candace. I was talking to Ryan earlier, and he asked me, what do I think about this statement? Now, the first thing that came to my mind was, all right, well, let's talk about it. Why don't they want to make a statement when they've made statements in the past? Well, I don't know this case very well, but I can probably reckon, based on some of the comments I've seen and things of that nature, that things haven't gone well for Dawn and Candace when they've talked to the public in the past. I think they've been ridiculed, something like Daniel and Malaya and, Jack and Lilly Sullivan disappearance. Very similar in that case. So the one thing that I told him, I was like, all right, Ryan, there's a couple of reasons why they may not want to talk. One, they've stopped talking. They haven't talked to anybody in a while, and their life has improved. And they understand that if they go out there and start making comments and talking again, that it may, they may not want to talk because of that. Number two, TBI or law enforcement have informed them not to talk because they were given some information. Maybe they know something. They don't want to jeopardize it. Number three, they're nervous because they did something themselves, and that's why they don't want to talk. I don't know about the third one. My best bet would be number one, that they've been ridiculed. They've gone through the ringer and everything else, and that's the reason why they don't want to talk. But could it be number three? Could it be number two? Can TBI have notified them, hey, we got a break in the case. We don't want you to say anything about it, but we think this. Possible. But he does say, we're waiting on a statement from TBI. So unlikely, they don't know what's going on. Now, because TBI hasn't told them anything, does that necessarily mean that they are the subject of being a suspect there? Maybe. Or it could be that maybe perhaps because, their continual conversations in social media and coming out to mainstream media and things of that nature, that maybe perhaps, they haven't told them anything because they are afraid that they're going to put out information. There's a lot of possibilities here. We shouldn't just look at it and say, oh, TBI don't want to talk to them, so this must mean they're the suspect in this search. They could be. I have no idea. This one, like I said, compared to like Jack and Lilly, this one I'm more, definitely more new and unknown yet. I'm still working through it, but I do have a weird, not a weird idea, but I do have a weird hunch, so to speak. All right, so let's go back to Fred. So Fred Hill Jr. Let's pull this up. So who's Fred Hill Jr.? Now, Fred Hill is a man who was arrested for, and this was back in 2016. He shot a guy in the neck or something like that. And then here recently, Fred was in jail for manufacturing meth. Okay. Now we're going to listen to an interview that Fred did 3 years ago. And he talks about drugs a little bit and how he's not involved in that and whatever. But then he gets arrested and he was in jail recently for manufacturing meth. He's on probation for quite some time still for that. So, we'll take a listen to what he says and things like that. But before we do, there's this other thing that came out, and this is from his sister, Karen, I believe. Now, from what I understand, Karen was very suspicious of Fred, and had contacted law enforcement. And this is from Detective Pruitt, allegedly. I have no idea if this is real or not. He goes on to say, below is the last email you sent to Sheriff Lawson. I'm Detective Pruitt of the Sheriff and the sheriff asked me to follow up with you concerning Fred Hill. Mr. Hill has been investigated extensively, and with the timeline that has been pieced together and his activities during the time period in question, he has been ruled out as a person of interest. This includes any video or any recordings that he makes / has made. We greatly appreciate the interest in the case, and at this time, and the time that you are investing in it, but Fred Hill isn't who or where you should devote your time to. Thank you, Detective Pruitt. Now, there's a couple of things about it. Could this be 100% real and accurate? 100%. I mean, there's a good possibility that Fred has been investigated extensively. I have no idea. Zero zilch. And, law enforcement is cleared him. Now, I don't think that they've said this publicly, which is interesting, right? Because, I started talking with Ryan about it, and he asked me, what do I think about this statement? And I was like, well, if Karen is somebody who is suspicious of him, it makes it seem more like there's a possibility here that they're being accurate, that this is true, that he's not a suspect. And then I started thinking about it a little bit more. I'm like, because I told them it'd be one thing if they told him, right? Hey, we told him, if law enforcement told him that he wasn't a suspect, to ease his mind so that way he continues to cooperate and things of that nature. That makes sense. Even telling the public on a short term, like for instance, if somebody comes out and law enforcement says, yeah, we have a suspect, or we don't, or whatever the case, we believe this. Sometimes all those press conferences and things are tactics to get somebody to get nervous. So if they put something out there like this to get them to ease up, I would say if it goes longer than a couple of weeks, then it's probably then it's probably real, right? If if he gets arrested, it's probably going to be in the next couple of weeks, and then you go back and you see that and you think, all right, well, that was a tactic to get him to ease up. What I don't think is that's a tactic that's used in the long term. You don't want to have somebody who's potentially violent and a danger to somebody else to give someone, a false sense of security around that person, and then something happened to them, which is why law enforcement don't really go out there and say certain things with certainties until they have evidence and arrest somebody and things like that. And so the other thing I thought of then was, if Fred is cooperating and his sister's reaching out, and even though she's skeptical or whatever, maybe they don't want somebody to spook him, and so they would say this to them. Now, if it comes out to like tomorrow or something that TBI or something said that Fred's not a suspect, given that plus this, I'd probably say they're right. Fred isn't the suspect. And he may not be. He very much may not be. But he has a interesting past, and he said some interesting things in his interviews. And we'll go over this. Let's see. I think that we're going to find that the abduction involved money changing hands. I mean, it could be. So let's look at this and think about this real quick. Now, I was listening to the lab, and he had on Detective Chris McDonough on here recently from the interview room, and they were talking about this case, and he had said something in that podcast that kind of stuck with me. Chris said that when he was talking with Candace, that at one point she started to cry and break down. He even said, turn the camera on, gave a wink and a nod, turned the camera back on. And she started bawling out. And then Candace said something to the effect like, hey, I think God is punishing me. And Chris was saying that maybe perhaps that it's because of something that maybe they did nefarious to the child. Now, to me, it's more of a causation instead of a punishment. A punishment, I think would be, to just kind of the way it sounded. I wasn't there. I didn't hear it. I didn't hear anything else. But it almost sounded like Candace was also saying that like Summer being missing was also part of the punishment of what she could have done. You start thinking about like, I wonder if she was doing something that she felt super guilty about that maybe didn't result in Summer's disappearance. Maybe it did. I don't know. But like, so I had asked Ryan, I was like, hey, is there any possibility? How can I put this? Because I had this better worded before, but if and we'll start off with your question here, and I apologize for going back and forth, but if we had if something happened to Summer and Dawn and Candace were involved and evidence ended up here at this house, what are the thoughts here? Are the thoughts that they panicked and they thought to themselves, all right, let's go out there to this house and dump the body? Are they going out to this house and saying, hey, can you help us out and do, take care of these remains? Or is there some sort of agreement between somebody that lives in this house and Dawn and Candace, and they met up somewhere, as somebody alluded to? The problem with all that is there's a lot of moving pieces for that, right? And to me, when you have more than like one person involved in something like that, and you have so many people, somebody's going to talk, somebody's going to say something to somebody, and it's going to get around, and eventually, you're going to catch a break pretty quick, actually. And think about the Celeste Rivas Hernandez case with David with D4VD. They have a second suspect. I'm fairly sure somebody else is talking and other people are talking and things like that. That's why they got the information that they have so far in that case. Here, I don't necessarily believe that this was more than one or two people. I do think that there's the possibility that Dawn and Candace have done something, or there was an accident and they're covering that up. I think there's a possibility of that. But one of the things that like I mentioned that was said was that she said, is God punishing me? And one of the things that I thought of was, could she have been? So like I mentioned, if somebody did something to her or somebody took her, they were familiar with the area, they knew the place. Dawn wasn't home, right? If somebody went to their house, this is somebody else, somebody random, right? Dawn wasn't home. So it wasn't like somebody went to go visit Dawn, right? He wasn't home. He was at work. This was during the work day, whatever the case may be. She's saying, is God punishing me? I wonder if she had somebody, a little side piece of some kind. Now, I don't think that if somebody went in and took Summer, that this was their intention. Don't think that at all. If somebody, I think that there's a possibility that just the wrong type of person was showing up. Maybe they were there to see Dawn and they didn't know he was at work. Maybe they were there to see Candace because they like to go see Candace while Dawn's at work. You guys can put two and two together what that could be. And this person shows up and runs into Summer and decides to take Summer instead. And so Candace saying, is God punishing me for something? I wonder if that's what it could be, because she was having possibly an affair. I think there's been some questions about that. And when I asked Ryan about that, I asked him, I go, I asked him, I said, hey, let me pull it up real quick. I'm listening to the lab with Chris and Justin on. They mentioned Dawn tried. Wait, that's a little bit later. Hold on. Any chance that Fred and Candace could have been romantic? And what Ryan tells me, he says that they interviewed a girl who had visited the home often with their grandmother and that they lived in a trailer there from 2018 to 2019. And she told us that Candace liked to give teenagers or have teenagers over and give the kiddos too much alcohol. And she had a preference for teen boys, but the girl never actually witnessed anything inappropriate. Many people think Hunter did things though. So I've seen that rumor around as well, that there was some sort of rumor between, Hunter and Candace, based on their day that day, and uh, just people looking into that stuff, right? And apparently there's a guy, 23 years old now, which would have put him about 19 then, who does have a connection to the house. He apparently has a record for speeding and reckless driving, but nothing else. And so I don't know. I'm not the type. I don't want to make victims somebody a victim just by saying, oh, this person here too. But my thoughts immediately went to, is there a possibility that somebody went over to go see Candace and ran into Summer instead? Like, I don't think for a second that the intention was to go there and do something. Now, this is an interview on a channel called Ziggy, and this is my first conversation with Fred Hill. I want to pull up a couple of things here out of this, and that I've kind of found here. So let's listen to this. We'll watch this, and then I'll stop and then go back and forth.
Okay. Are you by chance Fred? Okay. Just a minute.
I was listening to it at super speed. Let me slow that down. She goes, "Are you by any chance Fred?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm Fred."
I've been wanting to see. So Don Wells talks really highly of you, doesn't he? He likes to throw you under the bus, doesn't he?
I know. Right off the rip.
Nobody. I've been trying to get a hold of you. Everybody wants to hear from you and what.
Get down, Sissy.
What?
Get to the house. Go on.
What
Go
your?
Go. Go.
Yeah, I don't care. It's okay. Hey, sorry. I wanted to talk to you that time. You passed me. I was too scared to talk.
I ain't nothing like everybody that's on.
No. So you're the infamous Fred that. Yeah. So why does Dawn have such a problem with you?
I have no idea. Because I know a lot, I guess.
Okay. Yeah. So what do you know?
So she's talking with Fred Hill Jr. This is the person whose uncle owns the property that was just searched. And this was 3 years ago. So quite a bit of time ago has passed. And just kind of want to set that up.
I'm about to go.
You know Chris Donald? You know Chris Donald? Sandy Chris.
Okay. Oh.
You don't know? Okay.
No,
I don't know hardly nobody. I mean, really, I don't get around much. I stay right here and don't worry travel or nothing.
I came by earlier, but it didn't look like anybody was here. So why?
Well, I was down here picking up a trailer.
So why do you say you know too much? So what do you know about?
They're guilty as hell.
You think? What do you think?
Within 3 hours he was here, and I was gone when the little girl went missing. Well, there's a friend of mine come, and Candace was walking off my driveway before she even called 911.
So she was.
It's like he's trying to set me up for some reason. That's what I feel.
So he's concerned that somebody's going to try to set him up. He says that he wasn't even there when the little girl went missing. Okay. He wasn't there. Candace wasn't, or Summer wasn't there either. I'm not saying that he's him being gone and her being gone at the same time out of that area is something, but just, he wasn't there. But he knows that Candace was walking up to his property.
So Candace came by here. Was she acting like she was looking for Summer?
Yeah, that's what she was acting when my friend came.
So he goes, that's how she was acting when my friend comes. I almost like if he saw her acting weird, but he's saying it's from a friend.
He said that she was walking off the driveway, walking.
Was she by herself?
Yeah.
You mean she walked?
No, she drove her vehicle down here, didn't she?
She was walking.
She walked all the way from Ben Hill?
Mm-hmm. To here.
He was home that day too.
Was he? Do you think he was?
Yeah, and went to work that evening. After Kendrick got there.
So, you think he was home that day?
Yeah, I know he was.
You saw him?
Yeah.
Where'd you see him at?
At his house, because I was in and out hauling junk that day. I was hauling a bunch of old cars and stuff off. And like Andy, he was in here that day.
I want to talk to him. Can you? Do you
And
have
he
a-
swears up down, he's at work. He ain't.
So-
Because he was in here at 3 o'clock.
So Andy is a cousin of his who's also been, I guess, investigated as well into this. Now, when I was talking with Ryan, he told me something about Randy. I mean, about Andy. That he said that basically he's been investigated and he doesn't believe that. Let's see. That Andy isn't a person of interest at all in the case. Okay. Thank you, Sirius, for coming in with your $5. Always keeping it real. I appreciate that.
Because I had to pull over and let him by. And they had a Toyota truck. That's Jody's mom's.
So Jody is the person who heard the scream. All right. He's saying that her mom is the one that owns the red Toyota. To me, though, I mean, if that was the case, right? If the case was that was who it was, and he knows who it is, why is law enforcement, was asking for that information? It shouldn't have been very difficult for them to say, hey, do you know anybody that drives a red Toyota? Yeah, my mom does. Okay, boom. But that's not the case. So I don't believe it to be the same vehicle, but he goes on to say that that's what it is. Let's fast forward a little bit because there's a lot of like stuff that's not really important.
I'm so
It's
glad.
like the man I shot down here.
Oh, this is where he
yeah.
talks about the person he shot.
I heard about that. Are you the one that shot somebody in the neck?
Yeah. See, I didn't even know him when I went to court. He thought I was somebody else. He pulls up. I mean, he comes in here earlier that night. He owns property on up in the Hollow. And the man that owned my uncle owned that place. That's my grandmother's place. And when she passed away, one of my uncles ended up with it. Well, they had a little gunplay up there before.
Uh-huh.
And then he thought I was James, you see. And he even went and got his 18-year-old daughter and brought her back for her driving coming in, for her right in a danger. She just
Are you
turned
talking about
18.
Don?
No, I'm talking about
the guy
shot.
you.
Yeah.
So you got in this altercation with him, and that's what happened. You shot him. Did he pass away, or he didn't pass away?
He pulled 10 rounds for police station.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody puts me out like I'm so bad. And
no, you seem like a great, nice guy.
Yeah.
You
and I'm nothing like the rest of them. I mean,
Seemed like a nice guy. We've only known him for 10 minutes and 54 seconds. I think 3 minutes of this was driving up to his property. And the guy shot somebody in the throat. I'm not saying anything bad about these folks. I'm just saying.
They don't like me
Yeah,
because I'm straight up.
Did the other guy, did those other group come over here and talk to you?
No.
So am I
You're the first one, other than TBI.
Well,
see, even the cadaver dog stuff struck all the way up my driveway.
So cadaver dog struck up all the way his driveway. Interesting. TBI has talked to him. They talked to him extensively, and the dogs went up his driveway. I wonder if it was cadaver dogs or just the search dogs. You know what I mean? Because if it was cadaver dogs, they're looking for something like death, obviously.
But see, Dawn had been here.
Yeah. So you told TBI that Don had been here that day?
Yeah. I mean, the cadaver dog, they was here when talking to me, and they come up the road, and he was hitting about the bridge right there hard. They come up the road and went all the way up to that farthest vehicle you see on top and was hitting on it. They never even opened the door, but they ain't nothing in it. I've looked. But I found some bones earlier today.
There were the cops over here?
I ain't telling nobody yet.
You found some.
Where are they at?
The next driveway down. It looks like they've there's a tire been burnt, and then there's some bones laying around there, small like bones.
Is it close, like where we could walk to it?
Yeah.
Where you could show me?
This next driveway down.
Will you show me? Or okay.
I mean, I don't know what it is. It could be animal or whatever. But
so they found some bones. I'm assuming that didn't come out to anything. Let's see. Let's go to 1527. This is when he starts talking about Andy and Jody.
So what do you think about Jody Sue and Andy? Do you think that there's any chance that they're involved, or
they got some property on another road, and it's odd that they went and checked that property that day, and ain't been that property in over a year.
Is that where Jody Sue's living right now?
No, that's where they lived before they moved to
Right here.
Place. But it's straight across from that corner church.
Yeah.
But it's, I feel like Andy and them had something to do with it. I mean, helping do something.
Is that why was supposed to meet me today?
Because it was odd. When she went missing, they usually won't talk to nobody. They stay up on the hill and stuff. But as soon as she went missing, they didn't leave that road down there. They stayed down there for 3 days, day and night. They're trying to hear everything that's being said. I mean, it just made me feel like it was
paranoid.
Yeah.
She doesn't
And
want
then
anybody.
the 4th day, he takes off to Knoxville and don't come back for over a month, and they get a restraining order against each other and everything. It don't make sense.
So they aren't really together. They're not together anymore.
No.
So she's telling the truth about that.
Yeah.
Where is she living at right now?
I'd say she's with her mom.
Where's her mom with?
I think it's Stardust Drive.
What?
Stardust Drive.
Where's that at?
It's in Long Star.
Is that near Kingsport?
Yeah.
Okay, because she told me.
Like when you go out here and take a ride on Beach Creek, you get to the end of the creek, you get on Noble's Gap, and it runs into Long Star.
Well, I can't just show up there because she won't freak. She'll freak out. Do you think that they?
So Andy's dad.
Yeah, George.
Yeah. See, he lives right straight across from Stardust Drive.
Huh.
That's how Andy and her met. You see, they right there.
How long have they been together? For a long time, right?
Yeah, pretty good while.
She was saying 20-something
years. She tried to say I tried to rape her and stuff, and only thing I done was give her a ride home from the club. She was messed up to keep from her getting raped and stuff.
Yeah.
This lady accused him of trying to assault her sexually, and did he say that she had some things on her that he kept her from being? Let me rewind that a little bit.
Yeah, she tried to say I tried to rape her and stuff, and only thing I done was give her a ride home from the club. She was messed up to keep from her getting raped and stuff.
Yeah, I never heard that story. Have you?
I figured it would be, you know.
I don't think the story says anything about Fred. I don't think the only one that's throwing you under the bus is Don Wells.
Mm-hmm.
He first Dudley. I don't know if you know Dudley Ajon. You, Fred, Hill, and I want to talk to Jamie Killian. Do you know that? Mm-hmm. Okay, that's Jamie Killian or something. He worked with Don.
Mm-hmm. See, Don. On time, Don. In 15 years, he lived down there. He might have been here 15 times. And then after she went missing, he probably here 200 times since she went missing. I mean,
to do what? What's he do? Was he
want to hang out and stuff? I mean, I feel like you're trying to set me up or something. I mean, he'd always come with a bunch of coke or this or that and wanting to party, and I didn't want no part of it.
So he's saying he wanted no part of all these drugs, but he was arrested and he's on probation currently. What was it again? Manufacturing meth. And he's on probation for some time now for that. But, you know, again, very, very suspicious that people are going to set him up, that somebody's setting him up. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Everybody, I guess, can look suspicious. This is like Bradley Wong, right? Brad Wong in the Jack and Lilly Sullivan disappearance. That's the guy that came out and said that he had heard and seen, you know, a car driving back and forth at 1 o'clock in the morning or whatever the night before the kids disappeared. But RCMP come out and say that he's basically lying. And then you look at his history, and he has a history of narcotics and breaking in and entering. In fact, law enforcement had to rent out of storage for all the stuff that he had stolen. And yet he's, I guess, I don't know, but yeah, it's pretty insane. So he could be just that, you know, the Bradley Wong of this case, where he's super weird. But the thing is, his uncle, Fred Hill here, his uncle is the property that got searched. And again, FBI involvement, TBI, I would assume search warrants, things like that involved. He talks about a red Tacoma belonging to somebody that's related to a relative of his. You know, I mean, Andy is his cousin, ain't it? And I think it was his. I mean, I could be wrong, but isn't Andy and Miss Jody a thing, or were a thing? And you know, so interesting.
Yeah.
But that's why he I don't know.
Yeah. I mean,
even before
like, I'm going to tell you, I don't care about, like, anybody using drugs or anything like that. That's, like, not my, what I'm worried about. I'm worried about where somewhere is going to happen. Even, like, you know, he wants to also throw Andy into, but if you think that Andy and JC possibly, are they on drugs for you?
See, about 3 o'clock at night,
mm-hmm.
I had a bunch of cars here at that time. I mean, long road, loading them and stuff on trailer stuff, and I was having to park in the road to load them, and I'd have to move and let people by. There's one truck come in, and I can't place what color it is or nothing. I mean, I remember a truck, and it was just odd that way it acted and stuff. And then Andy come in and followed it out, like he would come in to get it to take it wherever, But I can't remember what kind of truck it is. Like my mind blank on that. But I remember, I know everything, every vehicle was in here that day.
So you think so is it Andy's mom or Jody Sue's mom that has a red Tacoma?
Jody Sue. Because she even it ain't got the ladder rack stuff on that.
But it did?
Yeah. Because she even said down there when on the third day I used to walk down there and.
So he said also that it even had the ladder rack on the side. So he's well familiar with this. I'm shocked that this information didn't get to TBI or something, that it forced them to reach out to the public to try to find this vehicle. Either that or they talked to, Jody's mom and found out that maybe she does have a Tacoma that's red, but that's not the one that they're looking for. But he's going on saying that it had a ladder and things of that nature. So interesting, thing that he's putting out there. Let's see. Move forward a little bit more.
They called the police. It was 6:30 p.m. that day. So supposedly.
That's the other thing too. So 6:30 is when the cops came. He says he wasn't there at the time, but he's talking about being there at 3:30. 6:30. Maybe he's not there at 6:30. But he said he had to let Andy in at 3:30. I don't know. Maybe he meant he wasn't there at that time, not necessarily there all day.
Dawn got home at 12.
They're saying
I guess it was
seen walking down the road at 7.
Well, that was one of the first news
How could
things.
they possibly have seen her walking
No,
down
not 7. They were saying she was seen walking away. That was the last night. That was one of the first news clips. It wasn't 7. The police. 6:30 is when the police were called, and
They've always been abusive stuff too.
Have you witnessed any abuse?
Yeah, I mean, I went down. They threw some stuff off of me down here at my mom's once, and I went down there to talk to them, and the youngins was locked in the basement. That's before they even put stairs down in the basement. No clothes on or nothing. Nick colder than hell. I mean,
let's listen to this.
Talk to them, and the youngins. They've always been abusive stuff too.
Have you witnessed any abuse?
Yeah, I mean, I went down. They threw some stuff off of me down here at my mom's.
He said, I've been down. And then it sounds like he's talking about he's been down in Candace and Dawn's house in their basement.
Yeah, I mean, I went down. They threw some stuff off of me down here at my mom's once. And I went down there to talk to them, and the youngins was locked in the basement. That's before they even put stairs down in the basement. No clothes on or nothing. Nick colder than hell. I mean, colder than it is now. And I mean, they act like they ain't never even seen a person. I mean, the way they acted and stuff when I knocked on the door there, because I didn't know which door I knocked on the top door.
So here's the only weird thing about this statement that he's saying. He said they weren't wearing any clothes. He could see them. It was cold. It was colder than it is now. But one of the things that I noticed in Chris McDonough's and Josh, the lab, video last night or the other night, was that it was a one-way window. Like there was a mirror so that you couldn't see in, down there because it was their bedroom. It's interesting that he was able to see all these things. He says it was colder than hell in there. Sounds like he went in there. Like he's been in there. I mean, it could be cold as hell outside, but it doesn't mean that they don't got like a space heater or something in there to keep it warm. He's making it sound like he's been inside there. So let's go back. Just kind of listen to that part again. You guys tell me what you guys think. If it sounds odd or suspicious, hit the like and subscribe button.
The youngins was locked in the basement. That's before they even put stairs down in the basement. No clothes on or nothing. Nick colder than hell. I mean, colder than it is now. And I mean, they act like they ain't even never even seen a person. I mean, the way they acted and stuff when I knocked on the door there, because I didn't know which door. I knocked on the top door, nobody answered, and then knocked on the bottom door, and they just one mattress laying in there, and one looked like a little blanket for me.
How did he know that? Did he go in? Did they let him in?
And you saw Summer or that day or?
I didn't see Summer that day.
But you think that they kept her in the basement a lot? Is that what you?
Well, I just talk about the whole time they had kids,
Yeah, I mean, they claim that she slept with them, which is weird. Do you think he was like touching her inappropriately?
I'd say he probably was. I mean, they've always had a lot of sex offenders and stuff because my phone alerts me and stuff on it, and every little bit it's alerting that sex offenders down there.
Yeah. Is there anybody else that you think I should talk to that would know Don Wells and that would talk and wouldn't mind?
There's one girl that was staying with them and stuff a lot, kind of anonymous, and her name's never been brought up. I don't know why, but the other little girl that people's been seeing is her daughter.
Is it Dale Terry?
No, it's I'm trying to think of her name. She's kin to me. She's a Crawford.
Her last name?
Marlena Crawford.
Marlena Crawford.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what he's talking about there, but Innocent Until says, I've heard it's not a one-way window. Well, I mean, that's what Chris McDonough described it as. When he went out there, he was out there, he walked the area, walked inside, and he talked about it being a one-way window and a one-way mirror, and which he said it makes sense because this was a bedroom and this is where people slept. Now, maybe perhaps that wasn't the case, if this was some time ago, before the renovations were done, I don't know. It didn't look like a newer door/window, but I guess it's possible. But, he said it's cold as hell in there and the kids were just in there, in their underwear, and they were acting crazy. Like they didn't know what to do. Like, it's just kind of weird statement. You know what I'm saying? Weird statement. That's it. But could it be more? I mean, the weird thing about it at the end is the fact that a property that is associated with him that he had access to possibly had some searching done to it. And what could it mean? What could it be? I know a lot of people, I think somebody put on there that Don tried to sell one of his other kids for drug debt. If that's true, I mean, I think that there's a possibility there. Then maybe that's what was happening. Could it have been the same thing with Summer? And to me, there's a lot of moving parts there. I think that the more people that are involved, the more likely somebody's going to talk. And I mean, you can point out to the fact that they did a search and say, Daniel, somebody did talk because they did a search. And I'd say you're probably right. It sounds like a tip, but, if you get a lot of people that are involved in this and it becomes super complicated, it's probably not likely, but if he did try to sell one of his kids at one point, then that's something that you need to look at now. Let's see. He brought Don's sister into the case. I'm reading what, Elena Lay is saying. I don't know. Why is Fred talking instead of Ziggy? Well, this was the first interview. I believe that they did. There's a few of them, and there's a few things that I went through and I was listening to. It's interesting. The red truck Ellie asked for is anyone who knows one to come forward to be ruled out. They just want to talk to him. I mean, yeah, that's like in the movie Home Alone when you had the two thieves outside going, we just want to, it's just me and Santa and his little elf, and we're just here to help you. Blah blah blah. Kind of like when what do you call it? Even Brian Koberger, they're like, hey, we saw a wide launcher in the area. They may have some information. They could be a witness. We'd like to talk to you. It wasn't the case. They were pretty suspicious of those guys. And so take that for what it is. I'm going to answer a few questions. Please put a couple of stars there. We'll do this for the next 5 minutes or so. And then I got to jump off because I got another show I got to jump to. But let's see. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. Someone has those kids, my opinion, Which ones? Jack and Lily or Summer? Don said, if you're addicted to drugs, you'll sell your soul for them. Did he really? You know, there are some things that he has said that is weird. You know, I was looking at some of the things that he has said, and it's weird. I mean, I understand why a lot of people look at them as suspects. I 100% do. You know, am I there to say that they did something? Not completely. You know, this search that happened way out there on about 9 miles away, I'm going to wait until that information comes out. You know, if something comes out, if nothing comes out, like if we don't hear anything, there's not an arrest made or anything like that, then that should probably tell us then, you know, they may have had some information. It may have looked good, but in the end, it didn't turn out to be anything. You know, if no arrest or anything is made, I mean, that's, you know, not to be Captain Obvious, but that's what it probably means. But given the sheer amount of law enforcement that was out there, from what it sounds like and what they were doing, it sounds like they got something kind of credible enough to possibly get a warrant for. So I'm hoping that we get some answers here pretty soon. I'm going to wait to get a response from that. You know, in the next couple of days or weeks, nothing comes out about the search that they did, then I'm probably going to lean towards it being a bust. And maybe more towards, I guess, the family again, that maybe something did happen there. But right now, I think the one thing that sticks out to me is, like I said, Candace mentioning that, you know, she was being punished for something. You know, if she was stepping outside of the marriage, could that be what she was talking about? Could somebody that she was stepping outside of the marriage with had shown up and had an opportunity where Summer was with him, or could it have been, you know, somebody else? Like if these folks had a bunch of crappy folks around them, people that were doing drugs and things of that nature, could one of them had been going over to buy or talk or whatever, and then found themselves in a situation where they're alone with Summer and left? I don't think the intention of, if she was taken by somebody, I do not think that the intention of that person was to kidnap her when they made it to that house. I think that was more of a situation that occurred of opportunity, so to speak. You know, I think that it's somebody who is very familiar with that area, familiar with that home, and maybe even somebody who's familiar with all the cameras are, because apparently there's some cameras in that area. Fred Hill goes around showing people about them in a couple of these other videos. I'll pull them up the next time we speak. And, you know, he's well aware of all these different cameras that are capturing people going one way or another. Maybe he's aware of a route that would take you somewhere without cameras being relevant. Now, if there are, like they said, a red Tacoma that is seen in the area, but it's not captured in all these cameras, that should tell you that the person's probably familiar with the area. You know what I mean? Oh, what show am I going on? I love to follow. So it's actually called it's a Steelers show. I'm going to talk about football. It's on a channel called Still Current Network, and I'm going to be talking about the state of the. It's called the Steelers Hangover, and we're going to talk about the dang loss we had yesterday. So if you're interested in football, yeah, come out that way. But if not, you know, I'm already at the end. Let me see if I have anything I missed real quick. Do you think the boys know something? I've always wondered what they know. Good question. I think that if the boys did know something, given the length of time that it's been, I mean, there could be some loyalty there, but I think that a therapist may have gotten the information out of them by now. But who knows? Maybe that's what happened, and that's why they searched this area. Maybe somebody remembers Dawn or somebody going into this, you know, into the backyard or parking there. Good possibility. Good possibility. Well, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. I got to get going. Hey, Karen, I'm a Steelers fan. Thank you. Thank you. Well, go check us out. I'm going to be out on just search up Still Current Network. I'll be going live on a show called The Steelers Hangover with my buddy Shannon White, and I'll see you guys there. But I'll be back on tomorrow night for some more information. You guys have a great night. Until then, we'll see you next time. Peace out.